Happy Wednesday, everybody, and welcome back to our Lenten digital devotionals for 2019. This is our fourth digital devotional of this Lenten season. The first one we started with Ash Wednesday and talked about what it means to have a contrite heart and be in the presence of God. Then we had our second week where we talked about what it means to begin a new spiritual practice, how we might find opportunities to be in closer relationship with God and communion with God so that we can really build that relationship with God. And then last week, the third digital devotional, we talked about coming up with something concrete that we can do. And so we come before God with a contrite heart, and then we build that relationship with God through some sort of spiritual discipline, and then we act in the world to be the hands and feet of Jesus Christ and to continue in that spiritual discipline as well. This week I want to take the focus a little bit off of ourselves, although Lent tends to be very introspective, and go toward our relationship with other people. In the world that we're living in, I am finding that more and more important in our spiritual discipline, in our relationships in this world. And so I want to just talk for a moment about relationships with other people, about what the scriptures say about how we are supposed to be in those relationships. I want to use Paul's letter to the Ephesians, chapter 4, verses 2 through 3, which say this. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bonds of peace. We live in a world that divides us in lots of different ways. One of the ways that it divides us, in fact, is this very thing that we call technology, which has both the capability of bringing people together across great distances and across time, but also has the ability to separate us because we're not in the same room with one another right now. We live in a world where those divisions and separations make it much easier for us to avoid the interpersonal relationships with people that maybe we don't get along with so easily, people who have different ideas, different understandings than ourselves, and we can build around ourselves then different niches where everybody tends to think the same way and act the same way and believe the same way, which is a benefit in some ways because we can be among the like-minded and we can worship with people who feel the same way we do, but it's also causing us to build more and more walls in this world. We have seen, unfortunately, over the past several years, numerous acts of violence from one faith community to another. We've seen lots of individual people who have been lonely or tormented in one way or another act out with hate in ways of mass casualty. Specifically over the last week, I have been, and I know you have too, really hurt by the news being reported that people out of Parkland have committed suicide, 2 young people in the aftermath of that. And then just yesterday that one of the fathers from Newtown also did the same thing. What kind of loneliness must it be? What kind of grief must exist in the human heart to cause someone to act out in such a dramatic way? And so this week, my encouragement to you is as you've built a spiritual discipline around yourself and your relationship with God, as you've added a spiritual discipline of doing something active in the world to be the hands and feet of God, I might make another recommendation this week that you consider how you might build relationships with someone that you otherwise wouldn't build a relationship with. Someone who thinks differently than you, that believes differently than you, that maybe even acts differently than you, someone whom you wouldn't normally be with in your day-to-day course of life. How can you reach out and find relationship with somebody like that and build that up? Keeping in mind this Ephesians chapter 4, be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. We live in a world that is relational. We have a faith that is relational. And so we are called as disciples of Jesus Christ to be what Christ was in the world, and that is a person who reached out and touched individual lives, who sat with individual people, who heard their stories, who healed those who needed healing. And in order to do that, Jesus knew that he needed to be with the people. And so I'd encourage you to close down social media for a bit, to press end on this video at the end of it, to find a way to truly be in relationship with another human being in some way that you otherwise wouldn't have been. So that is the devotional for this day. That is my suggestion for this week as you continue this journey of Lent, as we move toward Sunday once again together, that you might consider what it means to really be in relationship with another human being, and how you might work to foster that using the text from Ephesians chapter 4, verses 2 and 3. Good luck and God bless, and might we build a world that is fostering of relationships in better ways than we have.